Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Media Center of Ukraine, Ukrinform. Olga Atamanova is with you. We're into year 9 of the war, and today is day 244 of the full-scale invasion of the Russian aggressor in the Ukrainian land. And I want to thank everybody who tells the world the truth about our fight for freedom. Today, our team prepared the following events for you. At 1400, Fedir Venislavsky will join us, the representative of the President of Ukraine in Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, and we will talk about the results of Ukraine's recognition of the independence of subjects of the Russian Federation and possibility of placing peacekeepers on the border with Belarus. And at 1500 we will have live Alina Frolova, Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine and Deputy Chair of the Board of the Center of Defense Strategies. And we'll talk about the projects of bringing Russia and Russian officials for justice for international crimes. And now we're having Denis Marchuk joining us. He's the Deputy Chair of the Ukrainian Agrarian Council. Hello, Mr. Denis. Let's talk about Ukrainian harvest season resumption, how much we harvested and what's in our plans. Good afternoon. The agrarians like to say, let's count not what's in the field, but what's harvested. But for the time being, we have 4 crops: wheat, ripes, barley, and peas. The numbers are significantly lower, about 40% lower, which could be forecasted comparing to the previous season. And it's a result of the occupation of the significant part of the territory, and in some cases we were late with harvesting due to the Russian aggression. Some of the products are damaged because of the war, and now we have 15.4 metric tons of wheat harvested and 260 tons of peas, and ripes is 1.15 million metric tons, which ensures the food security in Ukraine, and it gives us grounds to think about some future export prospects. The work in the field is still in progress because it was previously delayed due to the weather conditions, specifically in part of the sunflower seeds harvesting. Now the agrarians are working hard to harvest the remains. So we have about 7 million tons of sunflowers harvested. The situation is more difficult with the corn, again because of the weather conditions which influence the harvesting progress. But this previous week and this week, agrarians are very active in the field doing the harvesting job, and the forecast is about 13 million tons. But again, everything will depend on the quality of the harvest, because we have some signals coming from the product manufacturers we will require more spending for drying, and in some areas the crops will not be able to be harvested until the next season, unfortunately. So we forecast the harvest to be about 50 million this year, which is not catastrophically lower, but still lower compared to the previous season. Mr. Denis, let's talk about export. What will be the export destinations? Now we're seeing the statements from the experts who say that we have difficulties with the operation of the grain corridor. We had the representative of the monitoring mission who mentioned that now in the Marble Sea there are queues of more than 100 vessels. Do agrarians already feel these problems already? Yes, the situation with the export deteriorated after Russian statements that they will quit the grain deal, and these threats are now reflect directly on the contracting of the new grain shipments, because now the contracts are only until the very first days of November, and there are no firm guarantees that the grain corridor will remain in force until further dates. But we will have work in progress on part of Ukrainian's government, Turkey's government, and United Nations, who are very interested in Ukraine's operation, in Ukrainian export. And yes, the situation is pretty much complicated with the vessels passing through Bosphorus Strait, because a lot of vessels are waiting for the inspection, and it results in the delayed shipment of the Ukrainian grain to their destination, to the infringement of contract terms, which further on results in the growth of demand not balanced with the proper supply. And no one can now forecast their operation within the 2 month perspective. But we have hope, we have faith, and we believe in the speed up of operation of the Coordination Council to improve the procedure of inspections of the Ukrainian vessels, of the vessels living in Ukrainian ports with the grain. Because again, as it was said, the inspection is more feasible in terms of ships coming into Ukrainian ports to inspect them for the delivery of, say, potential delivery of weapons to Ukraine. But now the inspection, which delays the ships exporting grain from Ukraine, is one of the instruments of Russian terrorism to delay the shipments, to deteriorate the economic situation in Ukraine. As to the countries where are export destinations, they are the European countries, the Asian and African countries. So it's like 50% goes to Europe, and another 50% are divided between African and Asian countries. But as a state, we undertook certain obligations, and we are ready to fulfill them further on. And it's very important direction of operation, because the seaports showed the most growth of export volumes. And even with the account of the high export volumes within the previous season, now this October we can see the results of about 7.5 million metric tons of export, because last month we exported 3.5 million, which are pretty good results, and we can show pretty good results in the export in general. What's your price forecast for Ukrainian grain within the season coming? It's a very difficult forecast, because we don't see a lot of growth inside of the country from the price growth from traders, but the situation improved, I can say, significantly from the summer. The price of corn grew like 10%, the wheat 10 to 15%. However, the absence of the turnover capital of the manufacturers led to the situation of the shortage, of the decrease of the sowing areas. So the 1 metric ton of wheat is being sold at port for about 210 United States dollars per ton. Dear colleagues, your questions. Oksana Polishuk, Ukrinform. Mr. Denis, can you please tell us some mass media referring to the heads of the agrarian holdings, they mentioned the significant decrease of the barley harvesting, and that may potentially lead to the decrease of the manufacture of the barley bread and barley flour. Yes, this situation depends to much extent on the return on the crop, because for different crops the expenditure for manufacturing, for the production of the crops is pretty much the same, but the realization price, the sale price in the markets may be lower, and this is how it influences Ukrainian export will still be in place, and it may potentially grow in case the price of the crop will grow on the world markets, and Ukrainian markets will react respectively. But we have to I have to emphasize, but in terms of both wheat and barley, Ukraine will be fully provided with the internal supply. Another question is about our traditional crop, buckwheat. The Ministry of Agriculture said that the price is already better in the shops, in the shelves of the supermarkets. The price decreased to about 60 hryvnias. Will we face further decrease of price? How will the situation stabilize? Yes, the situation with the buckwheat is pretty much good, because we already harvested 140 metric tons of buckwheat this year. Meanwhile, in the peacetime, the demand, the internal demand was about 120 million metric tons. So now the supply is more than demand, and it leads directly to the decrease of the price. Now we see the decrease from the beginning of the month. The price decreased from 90 hryvnias to first to 75 and now to 60. And previous time when I visited you, I told you that the situation will improve in terms of price, and we forecast even lower price, but even provided the fact that the expenditure of the agrarians is still high for all the crops, but we have to keep in mind the fact that for the manufacturer it's important to keep the price balanced, because in case the price will decrease dramatically, the manufacturers may refuse to produce the crops that don't bring good return. Mr. Denis, the loan programs, do they keep operating in Ukraine? Do they keep supporting the agrarian sector? Yes, there are government programs in place. Is the system of the system 579, where the agrarian sector may take loans under better conditions, but mostly all the funds are being directed to the armed forces of Ukraine, to the victory. We will have also grant projects implemented in the agrarian sector, which support horticulture, and they offer about 1 billion hryvnias to be channeled to those directions which provide better jobs, which provide the better number of jobs. There again, I emphasize the grant projects, and some are now in a pipeline, which we will see after the new year. We will see the new proposals after the new year, and today Verkhovna Rada has a draft law which ensures the state guarantees for the agrarians. So now when the war is in progress, some agrarians who take loans, they are not able to pay the interest on the loans, so they are only able to repay the principal itself. But 579, what I mentioned, is something that we have and something that is operating and something that works. Dear colleagues, any more questions? Mr. Denis, what is the percentage of the losses of the harvest in the occupied territories now that the territories are being liberated and the Ukrainian authority is being reestablished? I'm sorry, I don't have this information. Neither the Ministry of Agriculture has this information. We don't have these numbers because large part of the area of Kharkiv and Kherson region, which are being liberated, it's mined, and we have to do the demining should be completed, which is first of all done in some social areas like schools and residential areas, and further on we will proceed to the demining of the fields of the agricultural lands in the occupied areas. But you have to understand, because that the Ukrainian agrarians who operate in those areas, they face all this risk of going into the field. Say, for example, talking about the right bank of Kherson region, the agrarians have no opportunity to work there because he cannot put the lives of his employees in danger, bringing them in the field. However, those who try harvesting there, they face the situations when Russians come to there, taking away their harvest. Mr. Denis, do we have any estimates of how much grain was stolen by the occupants? We may do these estimates only after the full deoccupation, but the numbers we have now, they equal about $500 million, which were stolen and transported out of the occupied regions from Kherson region, from Kharkiv region, Donetsk, Lugansk region, where a lot of cases of such pillage was recorded. We just have to record those losses, to document all that information, and now Ukrainian Agrarian Council has a joint project with USAID who record and document all those losses by the calls of the Ukrainian agrarians, so that they provide the records in video and the documented format. They make pictures of, say, grain elevators destroyed, some farms destroyed, and that will further result in the claims for reparations to the aggressor. I know that Mr. Yermak now heads a section in the office of the president, which is directly involved in this work on submitting these applications for claims. We have more than 100 applications for the time being. I can give you the telephone number of the lawyer who is directly involved in this job. I want to thank you. I will remind you, we had Denis Marchuk with us, Deputy Head of Ukrainian Agrarian Council. Dear colleagues, our next briefing is 1400, and we will have Fedor Venislavsky with us. Stay with us.